Forever Youth Pastor, episode 10. This is my first conversation with another human being, a great friend of mine, a legend, someone that I really look up to and admire, someone who came into my life in a real friendship way in the past year and a half. His name is Scott Rose, and this is our conversation. And here's the deal. We don't know what we're doing. We're just trying to figure this out. And we're just having a conversation, and there is some stuff in it, his road to recovery that he has been on. I am just so deeply proud of him, and we just are having a conversation. And if it adds any value to you, or if it rings true to you, I will be so glad about that. If you can just give us some grace with the formatting and trying to figure it out. I don't know how the quality will come across. It's long, probably longer than we anticipated. But here's the thing, when you talk to people that you really love and friends that you're just really, really proud of and you've been on a journey with, the time just goes. We thought it was like an hour, but here's our conversation, and I'm really, really proud of us for having it and for putting it on the internet. And Scott Rose, I am so proud of you. I really love you. And you are a hero, bro. You are on a hero's journey. And you said it yourself, 1 inch every day. That is the power of faith, love, and compounding. 1 inch every day. Here's my conversation, episode 10, with a hero, Scott Rose.
All right, here we go. Forever Youth Pastor, episode 10. I'm here today with one of my great friends in the world, Scott Rose. Just going to set this up with a quick story. One day I was in my basement and I got a call from Scott. At the point that you called, Scott, I didn't know you that well. We had interactions. We just always seemed to enjoy being around each other, but we didn't really know each other. And so I got the call. And then I missed the call, which I miss a lot of calls. And then I got a text right after. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But that's where our story together started about a year and a half ago. And dude, we've been on a journey, man, like an epic journey.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm just so excited about having this conversation with Scott today is I want this hero to tell his story. But before we get into that, we'll just leave that as a bit of a cliffhanger. We'll get into all of that. But just, Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, growing up, your family.
Yeah, so I grew up in Eastport. That's where we are right now. My family has been on Long Island since 1641. Is the earliest we could trace it. My father looked it up. But yeah, I served in the military. I was a Navy corpsman for 5 years, active duty. We did 2 deployments, went to 22 different countries within that 5-year span. I was with 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines. Shout out to the boys.
Yeah.
And, the last, 5 or 6 years, I'm sure we'll get into it, but the transitioning out of the military was definitely the hardest part of my life. And it's a lot for everybody that goes in the military. When they get out, they don't realize, a lot of things, you're going to go through some trials and tribulations unexpectedly. But I was definitely the first one to be like, that's not going to be me.
Yeah.
That's not me at all. But yeah, I have, very close-knit family. My parents are divorced, but they're still very close. My brothers, Roger and David, Dave's 4 years older than I am. He owns a marina and some property management stuff, a few businesses, so he's very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And then Roger, he just got a new job actually he's establishing a strain of banks for Long Island for this newer bank. So he was a loan officer for a while, and then he moved up, and now he's establishing chapters on Long Island. So
Yeah.
But my father was a deputy sheriff investigator for 41 years, and my mother worked for the IRS and was a makeup artist all of her life. So
Yeah.
But yeah, close knit family. I mean, basically growing up, we would, it's so I was born in 1994, which apparently, if you're born before 2000, we're referred to as the ancients. I don't know if you heard of that.
No, I've never heard of that.
That's like a new thing,
Mm.
apparently.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, in the ancient 1994, I'm 30 years old today,
But you're ancient.
but I'm ancient.
Yeah.
Yeah. But growing up, like, I mean, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have like the computer was out, and I remember us getting a computer when I was around like 4 or 5, and we were just like, "What is that box?"
What
you
was your
know?
first thought when you used the internet for the first time?
My first thought, I don't know that I was like intellectual enough to like even have like a understanding of what
Yeah.
it was. It was just so baffling to me because like you couldn't use the phone if you're on the internet back then because it's like the dial up, what was
Yeah,
it
yeah.
called, dial up,
Yeah,
or
dial up. And it made that horrible modem
right.
sound. Yeah. Yeah.
But I loved to play mine was video games. It was backyard baseball, it was called, backyard football, and The Sims. Do you remember The Sims?
Yeah,
Yeah,
course.
I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
I think it's still going,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it like revamped. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was my computer experience when I was younger, for sure.
Yeah.
But it was crazy, for sure. Like we didn't. I think, and some of the gaming systems back then, I basically thought it was just like a TV.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. But using the internet, once that got to like exploration of other things, like like MySpace came out and all that, like
Yeah.
just crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I can just attest to like the closeness of your family because I've been a pastor here at this church for almost now 22 years.
yeah,
And your grandparents were just like pillars in this church community, but even in the broader community.
yeah,
And I also, like, sadly, but also awesomely, was able to do your grandfather's funeral.
right. I remember
And
that.
I just like, even I did your grandmother's funeral as well. And actually, leading up to your grandmother's funeral, your grandpa was in his 90s, and I went to go talk to him. Just like you go and meet with a family to just hear the stories of the loved one that passed away, and I just marveled at how sharp your grandfather was into his 90s, like the recollection of like things that happened 50 years ago. And it's like, man, I've just never, Dewey is his name.
Right.
And I just never seen anyone this sharp and this with it. And also like just such a seemingly good man. And like that's the roots you come from.
He was definitely between him and my father, the best men. I've yet to meet anybody that are as loving, as compassionate and caring in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, Grandpa, he was mowing his front lawn. I have a picture actually. His old mower, I forget the name, like the type it was, but he was 97 mowing his front lawn.
This is legit.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll send you the picture. so you
this
can
is
throw it up
not
if you
an
want.
exaggeration.
Yeah.
Like I don't live far from where his grandfather used to live, where now his brother does live.
Like a 30-second drive.
Yeah, and you'd see this stuff. Like this is real, and like this is like our community of people. Like your grandpa was
Yeah.
like such a fixture in the community, such a like. I mean, I just don't remember anyone ever saying anything bad about either of your grandparents. And like, that's a pretty cool legacy to come from.
They, like, maybe subconsciously even throughout my life, because there was a chapter in my life where I made myself away from the church. I distanced myself, and physically and spiritually and mentally, but they planted the seeds when I was very young of like faith, God, that's everything to them.
Mhm.
And he lived it, especially my grandpa. Like, I mean, my grandmother, 100%, she was like the anchor for grandpa, like, because grandpa was very Dewey. I'm sorry. Dewey was, everybody called him grandpa now,
Yeah.
so it's funny,
Yeah.
Grandpa Rose, but they were just such a good team. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking like that everybody else in the world had like grandparents like that.
Yeah.
It was literally like the Partridge Family kind of thing, like
Yeah.
perfect. They complemented each other so well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have amazing grandparents, but like, yeah, that you definitely grew up with a abnormally awesome
Yeah.
situation.
but they definitely planted the seeds of the importance when it comes to faith,
Yeah.
like early on,
Yeah.
and that would grow whether I liked it or not,
Yeah. So, there was a moment about a year and a half ago that I'm just hanging out in my basement. I got a TV down there, not just me sitting in my dark basement. But I'm hanging out and I get a call, and full transparency. If you call me, I'm probably going to send it to voicemail and I'll listen to it. And that's everyone except my wife, pretty much, and my kids. And so the missed call came through, and then not even 30 seconds later, there's a text. And so I don't have the text in front of me. I maybe could dig it up, but
Yeah. We text a lot. So.
it was like, I mean, it was an SOS text. It was like, I'm sinking. I'm desperate. And so I saw the text, I read the text, and I immediately called you. And that moment begun something that has become just insanely special to me, like this relationship. It came out of nowhere. It came like I had no expectation that you and I, like, we were always friendly, but that we would build over a year and a half, just kind of like this epic relationship where we genuinely like love each other to today, and also forged through, you and I both individually and together, going through like a journey. And so basically I called you back and you told me in that moment a year and a half ago, what?
Well, that's hard. No, it's
You don't have to say the exact
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
you told me, but what were you going through? Yeah.
like verbatim.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool to hear the other side of it because I didn't know what you were doing, or
Mhm.
anything like that. So this is the first time I'm hearing that. So I was heavily addicted to this substance called kratom, which you and I both have talked about many times. It's very popular nowadays, which I'm writing a book on it, for the last few years.
Yes,
so
you are. Let's go.
finalizing that
Let's
soon.
hold him to this.
Exactly. This is accountability. But in that moment, I want to say I can't remember whether or not I had contacted the VA about the addiction yet. But yeah, so I think I was 5 years or 4 years after the military. And I had come to a moment in my life where I was either going to take my own life or I was going to get clean.
Mhm.
And kratom in particular is a very slippery slope because like it's kind of like one of those, I forget what movie it is where like the guy's like addicted to marijuana or something. They're like, get a real addiction,
Mhm.
like it's kind of like it's looked as like a very like soft thing, but for which we can get into. But in that moment I was very desperate, and I remember I was driving on the LIE, right by Top Golf. I remember
Mhm.
like texting you while I'm driving, probably almost hitting, people and
I'm glad you didn't.
swerving and
Yeah.
but no, I'd felt, and I just want you to know this, like you call me a hero. No, man, like you're a hero. I've all my life, every time I've been to this church, anybody that's in need, or feels broken themselves. And this is all of what I've seen in public, so I could only imagine what goes on behind doors. But you only accepted people with open arms and open ears, which, I knew that calling you without even knowing you personally, that you would be the guy to call. And there's just something about the way you preach or the way you present yourself to where I felt you were approachable. Because I wasn't going to anybody, about this. This was like the only people that knew about my addiction was, at the time, was Raj and Dave,
Your
my
brothers.
brothers.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I was, just basically Raj, Dave, and my brother's wife, Erin. And I think my brother's girlfriend, Danielle, might have known. But Raj, Dave, and Erin in particular, because Erin had, she's Raj's wife, like I said, but she had worked in like psych wards and done rotations and also had an ex that was an addict as well. So she had, been versed in that world.
Yeah.
So she'd been able to give me some advice as well. And, but anyway, to not go on in a rabbit hole, for whatever reason, I felt called to call you or text you. And even though you ducked my first call,
Everyone's
first one. No, it's
call twice or just text.
But it was probably like 30 seconds later you called me.
Yeah.
Back. I think I sent the text and then like I put my phone down and it was ringing.
Yeah.
So and then we started talking, and I remember right then and there the moment that I was feeling. I felt that I had done so much in my life to the point of no return. And it wasn't even like for one, I definitely thought I was like doomed. Like I was like, all right, I'm going to hell regardless. But that wasn't even like the worst thing. I just thought I was wrecking everybody's life around me, and my relationships, a few of them, due to my addiction, were very, in turmoil.
Yeah.
And I felt that I had just dug myself deeper in this hole. And but I'm glad that I chose to call you and to reach out, because I think around the same time I'd contacted the VA about my addiction, because there had been some instances that went on with my family, with my brothers in particular. They remember, to where it was like they were basically like, hey, you need to get help, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this was, the timeline is so, construed. My family had like a small intervention with me, and my ex-girlfriend as well. They had a small intervention because I had, at my niece's baby shower, I had been like not drinking for a few months because I had lied to everybody saying that I was dealing with issues from the military, when in reality I was just dealing with an addiction that had been going on for 5+ years. So this was I was very protective about that, but yeah, I called you and you were like, dude, we need to meet this week, like stat. I remember something along the lines of that. And I remember coming here in this office and not knowing what to expect. I didn't know, but it ultimately, it felt like the right move, like something God was telling me in my heart, like that was like, the move. And it's just so many thoughts coming in my head, thinking back to that time, because I would imagine from your seat, like it's like a different person you're talking to. It's very hard to explain.
You are today a completely different person than the person who sat right here a year and a half ago. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it is hard to describe as you're saying without actually like just seeing the difference. But like I can see the difference.
Yeah.
And so like first of all, I just want to like say this too. Like anybody that's willing to make that call and then to come and sit down, like in my estimation, and in like 20 plus years of being a pastor, it's like the hardest part is already done. Like that's the biggest part.
Yeah.
It's like that call of desperation. I mean, the first step of AA, it's like
Yeah.
acknowledging that there's a problem. And
100%.
until you do that, you can't then start taking the necessary other steps.
Yeah.
And so like I had no idea the work we were about to do, and I had no idea how long you would be willing to go. But I knew you were there that day, and I knew I'd be down if you were down.
Yeah.
And the thing, Scott, that I so deeply respect about you, one of the things that I so deeply respect about you, is that like you've just been a gamer ever since. Like you've never stopped going after it. You've never stopped having the conversation. You've never stopped trying to like seek help outside of yourself.
Yeah.
You've never stopped like one of the things that Scott and I just have a deep commonality is just we're deeply curious people.
Right.
Like we're learners.
Yeah. I'm interested in everything.
Everything. I'm interested in
Yeah.
everything. And it's like if there's any like little bit like the people listening can take from like this whole project that I'm working on is just like be a deeply curious person.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing about being deeply curious is you not only learn a lot of things along the way, but it also helps you get out of a pit.
Yeah, it does.
And so like I guess as you're just looking back at like kind of coming out of that pit and like all the many layers, like you've had a lot of people come alongside you and support you and help you. You've built an awesome team of support.
Yeah.
But like what are the things, Scott, that helped you like get through this?
Well, I feel like I should paint a little bit better of a picture for the context because I feel like I've kind of gone a little bit everywhere, but I was a recreational partier, like no different than what you would expect somebody in the military to be, right? And so like I was introduced to Kratom while I was in the military still, right? And I dabbled with it a little bit and didn't feel good or whatever, didn't like it, but I was under the presumption that it was a health food supplement. That basically it was good for you. If you watch this documentary called Leaf of Faith, it's very pro kratom, and I'm not knocking it or anything like that because it's definitely helped people and continues to. But for me in particular, it ended up being my demise. And so I went on 5 or 6 years and ultimately started using it every day around a year after I got out of the military. Like I would take it every now and then up until then. And then when I got out of the military, I didn't realize like the power of it. So then I finally felt like an effect. I'd realized that I wasn't taking enough. And, because you have to take like quite a bunch to get an effect. And I remember I was about a year out. I was working as a personal trainer over at Unique Fitness Extreme in Shirley. And I had a client around 8 a.m. I had a client at 4 a.m. and then one at 8. And I had a gap. And I'm sitting in the parking lot over this at this gas station. And Kratom popped in my mind. I was like, oh, I forgot about that stuff. Like, yeah, like this will give me an energy boost, And from that day on, like I took it every single day for about 4 or 5 years, And my brothers were the only ones that I told about the addiction about 3 years in. So I just want to paint a bigger picture of like I tried to get sober or clear off kratom probably 5 to 10 times before me and you had even met.
Yeah.
You know, and there were bouts where I did for a while, but then I would just go back into the lying aspect of like, hey, I'm clean.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, lie to my brothers who were, you know, worried and you know, doing all this research. Raj in particular, he's a hero. I mean, both of my brothers are 100% heroes. Raj in particular did a huge deep dive. He's a leader, natural born leader, you know, and he did extensive research about it, and that made me feel less alone, you know, because I felt very isolated, very like shameful. But yeah, I just wanted to paint that, you know, picture a little bit better for the audience because this wasn't the first time. This was, you know, several times after. But I'm sorry. The original question was what has been some things that had helped me?
Yeah. How did you work through? Yeah. An addiction.
Yeah.
And just like getting, because I remember very specifically, like, I mean, even just your train of thought, your eyes were fuzzy. Like we kind of I had this thing where like as you were getting like sober, your eyes just like started clearing up. Your thoughts started clearing up. Your emotions started to like even out. And so like as you're just going through that journey, like what did you find were the helpful things to like actually do it this time?
The single most helpful thing, tell the truth.
Yeah.
Be truthful in what in your actions and in your words. Because I say this pretty often. I'm involved in AA, and at the Veterans Affairs they have a program going on. It was intensive outpatient, but I'm not a part of that, but I am a part of like their alumni. So I'll go there and like talk to some guys, or you know, I still have connections over there, right? And veterans have a special spot in my heart.
Yeah.
But the truth will set you free. Like that's what it really.
Somebody
comes down
great
to.
once said that.
Yeah.
Said, Jesus.
Exactly, and that so truth, faith, like those two in particular, because if you go to any 12-step program or, you know, addiction recovery, it's very, very pushed that the idea is if this brain in between my ears got me sick to the disease of addiction, then this brain is not going to be able to cure itself.
Yeah.
Something greater needs to be. Like something greater needs to step in and make a change, right? That's the whole idea of addiction and recovery. There's certain people that don't do the higher power thing, but at the end of the day, we're all worshiping something, and in my eyes, they're worshiping the idea that they don't have a higher power. So it's like, you know, you're finding your own way of, you know, believing in something. You know, we're believing beings, I believe. So that like desperation restored my faith more than anything in my life by far, because I actually started to believe in God again. You know, there was a time in I want to say 2014 around, to where my parents had, you know, gotten a divorce, and I've talked about it with you many times.
Yeah.
But you know, throughout, I saw it coming my whole life. You know, it was, and I'm not throwing stones at my parents or anything like that. You know, they're humans and they're just trying to figure out life just the way I
Yeah.
am. You know, they're no different. But I saw it coming my whole life. You know, I was the youngest child, so I would be told like, you know, everything's okay, like just trying to protect me, you
Yeah.
know. But the thing is, like, you don't realize that little kids are humans as well,
Yeah.
you know, and they observe, you
Yeah.
know, and so that, you know, my parents splitting had been a, I guess when it actually happened, that was one of the, and there were pretty much others too, reasons that I kind of turned my back to God.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, well, that doesn't exist, obviously. Like, I remember my parents saying that they would never get a divorce. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's so I had turned my back against God for a few years after that. And it was kind of a fad, too. Like, you know, it was kind of like a thing to do back then was like, oh, yeah, I don't believe in God, like that kind of thing. Or, you know, dive into the spiritual realm. I'm very spiritual and all this, and you know, I very much signed up for that kind of stuff uh, during maybe like that 5 year span until really I got sober again.
Yeah.
You know, but in my heart I'd always believed, and that's where those seeds from my grandparents, my parents, my family had really, like, those roots were embedded in faith.
Yeah. And that's like the thing that I observed as we started journeying together is like you just had kind of this assumption that it like faith would work.
Yeah.
And because it was like it was instilled in you, it was a part of you. Excuse me. But I remember like dude, you were hungry for it, man.
Yeah.
Like you would come and you'd just be writing stuff down, searching stuff. Like, hey Jeremy, I found this verse. Like, check out this verse.
Right.
Have you heard of this before? And like it was just so cool to see how you were just leaning into kind of like what you just were talking about, like leaning into something that's bigger than yourself. Like
Yeah.
that, you know, like the only way that I'm going to get through this is realizing that there's something bigger out there, God, who is actually in control of this. And right now, I am not in control of this.
Yeah.
And I think like people who go through addiction, like that is such an obvious state of their being that like they come to the conclusion at some point, if they want to recover through that, that they can't do this on their own.
Yeah.
And that's the power of faith in the process. It's the power of things like AA. It's the
Right.
power of counseling. It's the power of like doing this with other people who can kind of understand that journey.
And that's the other part is, like, you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't, really, in my eyes. You definitely can if you want to, if you believe, like, if you believe strong enough.
I don't hear
you
that
can do
story very
anything.
often.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't see a prolonged and sustained recovery
Yeah.
with that. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen more so people that aren't in a 12-step program, and trust me, I hated, like, I never wanted to be a 12-step
Yeah.
weirdo
Yeah.
and that's always how I viewed it, and that's a lot how the
Yeah.
public does too, and I get it, but it's not just like many things that people are involved in, like I don't know, like a basketball club or like the gym or a music club. Like, when you're in a certain thing, like, there's so many things that you don't understand about it until you're actually in it.
Yeah.
So, you know, AA in particular, although I'm not an alcoholic, that framework
Yeah.
has been, you know, since 1939, I think it is, or 38, you know, it was written. That stands to the test of time. Like, that program is so good. And I tried out NA and all these other things, which were great in their own way. But for me, for one, there's over like I think 120,000 groups now
Mm,
spread throughout the
incredible.
world.
yeah.
That's more than that because it says it in the back of the AA book. It was like now there's 120,000 groups.
And it was
So
written
there's
a long time
probably
ago. Yeah.
yeah, there's probably a lot more than that now. But for me, that showed me that there were like other people that were even worse than I am,
Mhm.
you know, a lot worse than I am. And they'd made it through. So
Yep.
for me, that made it seem like I could too if I followed that program. And you know, it's very strange for my own addiction because during the peak of my addiction was also the peak physical shape that I was in
Yeah.
because I got out of the military September 18th of 2018 and September 9th of 2018. And the day after I got out, I was like, okay, I'm going to train and go back into the Navy. I'm going to get my degree and become a Navy SEAL officer.
Yeah.
Like that was my dream from then on, was like getting out. I was like, I'm going to go back in and be a special operator, all that kind of stuff. And I dove in head first. That was my number one priority um, for my whole addiction, you know, up until about a year and a half ago, it wasn't, you know.
Mhm.
But that's the weird part about it was like kratom in particular is used by athletes and can be used as a great performance enhancer and cognitive enhancer. Um, the problem with me was if one was good, then 30 must be great. And,
Mm.
you know, that over time, it went from spending $10 a day to about $300 a day,
Yeah.
you know? And so, like,
So that's legit what it got to,
yeah,
like,
yeah, legit. That was the
$300
most,
a day.
$300 a day.
which is like over $1,000 a month.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was like I I got I was here in New York going to Stony Brook training, getting my degree in I think I was studying biology here. And I gone through a breakup. I had $20,000 saved in the bank. Um After the breakup, I actually got off kratom for a while and was doing good. I visited my buddy Fanaya in Miami, who lived down there, and right then and there, I was like, "Oh, dude, I'm gonna transfer, you know, my studies to University of Miami," and you know, I ended up doing that. I made the move. I lived there for 3 years. By the time I left Miami, I had burnt through the 20,000, but also I had a college fund. It's like a 501, I think it's called, but that had $100,000 in it from stocks. I burnt through that as well.
Yeah.
So I'd spent over upwards about like initially I thought it was around $70,000, and it's really more so looking like 120 to $150,000
Yeah.
that I spent within those 4 years. And that's like in that lifestyle, the kratom and partying and all that. But the majority of my money was going to that or food. You know,
Yeah.
that was what it was. But it's crazy to think about that, you know, because that's a lot of money. You
Yeah.
know?
It's a lot of money, and I think like that it definitely just shines light on like the depths to which this thing had like gotten a hold of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Scott, I just really appreciate like what you said. And one of the things that I learned in journeying with you this whole time is like you right away, like one of the biggest changes that you knew you had to make was, like you said it earlier, is just become honest about like everything.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you described addiction is like you just made addiction and lying as like synonyms. Like it's the same thing.
They're synonymous.
And so as long as you're still like going about like lying about these things, like you still have like this addiction.
Yeah.
Because and vice versa. But one of the things that I've seen you do in just some incredible ways is just become this honest, vulnerable person. And one of the things that we've journeyed together, like in our own ways, within our own stories, but we've like helped each other journey through like the shame that we've gone through.
Right.
And it's like, I know what my shame is. I know just the depths in which that has just had a dramatic effect on my life. And it's also kept me back from like becoming the person that God wanted me to become.
Right.
But if you could just like maybe talk to like some of the ways in which you felt shame and maybe describe that and how like you've overcome that.
Yeah. All of my overcoming, I just want to say that's not from me, that's from God.
Mm-hmm.
That's 100% from God, from my family, my support system, my sponsor, Ken,
Mm-hmm.
who's a Vietnam veteran, which you've met.
One of the coolest dudes. Like, you just instantly know this is like a world-changing, cool dude
Yeah.
who just loves people and wants to see people win.
Yeah. But I didn't do anything alone. Like, all of this, I just want to preface that. All of the things that I was able to be successful when it comes to recovery is not just because of me. It's because of you, Ken. There's a few guys at the beach, Lenny, Eric, Pat. There's so many people that I can name, aside from my family and you
for sure.
as well. And I apologize if I'm forgetting anybody, but that's just what I want to, let that be known. You know? But sorry, I feel like I'm weaving around questions right now.
Dude,
But what was the
you're
initial?
on fire, man. Just the shame you felt.
I don't do these podcasts that often.
Neither do I. The shame you felt and
That's
just
right.
like the ways you work through that.
What you said before, that I wasn't the biggest underlying issue was that I knew that I wasn't living up to my potential. And like, I don't think we ever really will reach, what we perceive to be our potential, but 100% within those years that I was in active addiction, that was the main statement was, you are telling people you're doing this and other people perceive you to be doing this, when really your mental state and your mental, spiritual and emotional state was completely opposite of what you were saying it was.
Yeah.
I was telling my family, thought I was doing amazing in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposedly getting great grades and training, and I'd even went to Virginia Beach to train with a former development group SEAL Team 6 guy, Jeff Nichols, for 6 weeks. I did like an internship per se for exercise physiology and learned how to train for SEAL selection. So from a distance, like, I was doing great, right? But I was the only one that knew that I wasn't, you know? And that was like the biggest disappointment, and it fed the addiction so much because I was lying my whole about my whole life, really. Like, anything within those 5 years I was lying about, and it could have been the smallest thing, from like I would like one up anything that I was like, someone would be like, what'd you do today? And I'd just be like, oh, well, I could have read like 10 pages in a book, right? I'm like, I read the entire book, you know, like it's.
So what was that insecurity though, to like try to make people believe you read the book when in fact you didn't?
I don't know what it comes down to, really. A lot of it was me getting out of the military and pretending that I had been this big badass figure
Yeah.
of like a huge, combat vet and all these things that I was like sociopathic, like trying to convince myself, because that was
Yeah.
my dream, to be a combat veteran. That's what I
Yeah.
signed up to do, and all that. And the bottom line is, and this is for other veterans that also, didn't have that, you did what your country asked of you to do
Yeah.
at that time.
Yes.
But for me, that was what started out a lot, was like that insecurity of some of my friends had, been in combat and all that. And, I am not a combat veteran myself. So I was very insecure. Like, I got out and I felt like I had to rest on that.
Hmm.
And like, for me, which is, it's so funny, because in hindsight, like, nobody really cares, like,
Yeah.
in terms of like whether you did or didn't. They respect you regardless. But
Totally. From
there
the
was
outside
this-
perspective,
yeah,
that's totally
yeah.
true. Yeah.
And but so that was a component of it. Also, like, I had this drive since I was little, maybe because I'm the youngest of three boys. I'm 5'7", so it's like, or maybe like 5'6.5". Let's not, let's be 100% truthful here.
We in my family we round up and add one.
Oh yeah,
So you're like 5'8".
right. It's funny when the taller dudes, they can get away with being like, they're like six. Like, my best friend is 6'5" or six. He's like, yeah, I'm 6'6". We're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But he can get away with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, my mind is it's a lot. But what was I'm sorry, my mind is going crazy.
You're good, dude. Just like, yeah, speak to like the depths of like, yeah, just what are the other areas of shame that you felt along your journey?
Disappointing my brothers after, they were trying to help me.
Yeah.
And then continuing to lie after that. Like, I don't know if I said it before, but the lies fueled the addiction, and the addiction fueled the lies. So when you're in this circle of like, let me take something to fill this void that I have, which was, and I want to make it clear that getting out of the military, I said it at the beginning, like, I lost my whole sense of purpose. Even though I set my mind on going back in, I still wasn't in, so I was kind of like, they take the floor from under you, and you're just like, what do you do, but you go from having this meaningful and purposeful mission in life to serve, that I thought was the most incredible and honorable thing for me.
Yeah.
To not. So a lot of this stemmed from that too, to fill that void. But when it comes to shame in particular, there's so many things that really come into play with it. But the main component was me disappointing my family and me disappointing myself.
Yeah.
And in reality, like, my family was just loving and caring about, they just wanted me to do good, in whatever light that it was. Like, it didn't have to be in the military, it didn't have to be becoming a SEAL or anything like that. It could have been whatever I wanted to do in life, because I'm also a musician. I've always been a musician, but I always wanted to be great at something in my life, and I guess maybe it stemmed from those little insecurities as a kid. So like, I got to do better than my brothers, kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say that I mean, it's probably in all of us, but I definitely, saw that in you. And then when maybe like it doesn't work out to get into the SEALs and like these different things, it's like, oh, okay, what is my meaning and purpose? And what's been cool though, Scott, is like, as you've gone through this journey to like recover through addiction, I feel like you have been working really hard to find your meaning and purpose elsewhere. And
Yeah.
one of the things you just mentioned is like in music. And I've also seen you like, you've just leaned deep into your faith. I mean, you're kind of at the church all the time, and you're being a part of things. I think you're actually gonna start playing music
Yeah.
at the church.
Yeah, no, me and
like,
Josh were talking, so it's cool.
yeah, like these things where it's like all of a sudden I'm starting to find this like meaning and purpose outside of maybe these childhood, teenage,
Yeah.
like college age dreams that you had.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, those dreams were like perfectly pure and awesome and good.
Yeah.
But like when maybe they don't go as you hoped, all of a sudden there's like this deficit to where it's like, okay. And so maybe just like speak to like the areas in which you found kind of this renewed meaning and purpose in your life.
Yeah, well, I started playing guitar when I was around 6, I believe. I got my first guitar 5 or 6. Played till about 12, and then I took a break till about 17 or 18, you
Mhm.
know. And that's when I really started, loving it. That was always my avenue of like, if I was home watching TV, whatever, like I had my guitar in my hand.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I played with my friend Fanaya, who I make music. We're in a band called Kafka,
Mhm.
which we have 3 songs out, an EP called Seaport. But really, like, I'd never really believed in myself in that aspect,
Yeah.
because that was actually like my first true dream, was to be a musician. I remember performing in the talent show in kindergarten, in 6th grade, and it'd always been kind of like a big dream. But anything with music or entertainment, those kind of like pipe dreams,
Yeah.
There's a reality of like that's a very tough business to get into. So I wasn't really necessarily encouraged to do so, and I wasn't discouraged either. But it was more so like, okay, like, but in reality, what are you gonna do with your life,
Yeah.
But that was a tremendous avenue for me. That was always there, and although there's not songs out right now, I have a bank in my phone of about 300 songs that
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Trust me,
finish.
he puts in the work.
I
He's
mean,
got some
these
stuff.
are like,
Yeah.
will show. I mean, it's very like all of this. These are all songs, from throughout the years, and my friends got a bunch. But that was probably the biggest avenue for me, was music. To at least I was good at that,
Yeah.
for me. And in my darkest days, I still kept moving forward in that.
Yeah.
Like I would write some maybe too dark songs, but when I go back and listen, I'm like, wow, that actually captured that captured the feelings that I was going through in that moment.
There's incredible power in that.
Yeah.
Like way to like tell your story through music, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that I'm still learning to do. There's a lot in music that I don't know. And with guys like us that are deeply curious human beings, it's like I want to be able to make my own music, but also produce my own music. I want to be able to do it all myself, all on my own. Here we go again. Like, I need to do it myself, right? There's a reason why they have 4-year degrees to become an audio engineer, or certificates and courses, like. And I'm learning within this last year and a half of being sober, that maybe it's okay to kind of ask somebody else for help when it comes to the music, because for me in particular, like, I have a solo album that I'm working on about addiction and about recovery and life and relationships, love, heartbreak, all that, right? And I'm producing it myself, and I have a studio at my house, and I could hold on to those songs forever and it'll never be done, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm learning this right now because I've said it before. I'm like, oh, this song's going to be out in a month. And then I'll find out something, oh, no, I need to change this. But now I'm like, I just reached out to a few audio engineers. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, can you mix this for
Sweet.
me? Because I can't get it right, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's like realizing that it's okay to not be able to get everything right or
Yeah.
the way that you want it to, you know? So like, you know, for the songs coming out soon, I'll have external help when it comes to mixing and mastering, so I'm excited about that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, like one of the common journeys that we've shared as well is like the the slog through shame that you have to do when you make and create stuff. Like
Yeah.
I started making. I'm actually 129 videos in a row for 129 straight days. I've made a short reel that I've put on social media.
No, I'm so proud of you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And you've been one who has cheered me on through that whole process. But I just remember thinking, like, this is so scary because, like, there's people out there that will just judge the crap out of me because, like, what do I have to say? And now I'm doing these, like, longer form podcast episodes where most of them, this is the first time I've
I
talked to
appreciate
another
it.
human,
I'm
but
very
most of them
excited to be
have
the first
just
guest.
been like me talking into a camera with my thoughts, and there's just like this.
Dude, they're so awesome though. They're
Thanks,
so
buddy.
awesome.
There's just like this exposure that like you're putting yourself out there to like this unknowable world where anybody frankly can think and say anything about it, and it's like,
Yeah.
so what that has done for me is it's actually two things. It's like drudged up so much of my own shame, but it's also allowed me the opportunity to apply like faith and like courage to that shame.
Mm.
And so it's been like insanely healing. It's
Yeah.
been like insanely transformative for me.
Yeah.
And so like I would love for you to like speak to that side of like creating and how that helps you, but also like, has that been your experience too?
Well, like I had mentioned with the music, like that's a direct reflection of how I could be with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, even this podcast right now, I'm like, you're not answering questions. Like you're not on
The
the
inner
ball.
dialogue.
No, really. That's how
Yeah.
it feels. You know, I'm like, I didn't even answer a single question. I just bobbed around the whole thing. And that's, I mean, my intentions are, I
Ladies
want
and
to,
gentlemen, let me introduce you to the voice of shame. That's what it does.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what it does.
Right.
I've messed everything up. I haven't answered anything.
Right.
Jeremy thinks I suck. Meanwhile, Jeremy's just like, hey, we're just recording and talking
Right.
to a friend.
No, and totally like this is the first time we're talking, so it's like what I intend on doing by not answering any of the questions is like context.
Yeah.
You know, it's very hard to speak about these things from not understanding the background.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, but like you said, that's the shame and the writer's guilt. Is that what you called it?
Yeah. Basically, creator, like we refer to them jokingly as like the shame monsters.
Yeah.
That like it literally is exactly what you just did. I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like this person over there must be thinking I'm a total idiot. Or like you said specifically, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm missing all the like I'm screwing this thing up. It's like, well, what's there to screw up? There's gonna be like 4 people who will like get this far, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, that's my voice of shame.
Right.
Like, why am I?
Yeah.
limiting?
You just limited yourself.
Yeah. And like that's what we do. Like, why would I assume that there's going to be 4 people that have
Right.
made it this far? Like, and why do we do that? And like, we all do.
Yeah.
And it's like the people who have the audacity to like power through that shame, those are the entertainers. Those are the comedians. Those are the creators. Those are
Yeah.
the ones we follow on YouTube.
Right.
Those are the ones that we admire. And then we look at them and like they have to have something to say, but they also have like just this courage. This courage to like face their own insecurity and just like go for it. And like I know we've talked about like your journey with music, your journey with creating things, your journey with writing a book one day to like help other people walking through the same thing.
Definitely a
But
lot
it's
going
like we just like keep hitting the wall, and then the the dark side to that is that we don't end up then doing it.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Right.
For us especially, but for the world as well, because the world needs more and more people that have the courage to just tell their stories.
I think this comes down to something that you say, or you showed me in particular, when one of the first things was I could be sitting in this chair and whatever, you can read my posture or whatever, but literally or figuratively in my mind, I could be like this with life, right?
Mm.
And like what I strive to and what you've showed me and what you strive to do is just do this.
Yeah. That's it.
To have the courage to be open and vulnerable and truthful and be yourself and let the other things go. Let let others see the struggles that you've been through, the shame that you deal with, the hardships, ups and downs, life and death, breakups, new relationships, all these things. Like whatever it is that you're doing, like cultivate that and in a truthful manner, be open with it. That's what I want to do, and I feel like that's a lot
Totally.
to like you as a pastor have talked about. You're still a person, and I think that's one of the biggest things with me and you was like we've always, at least I hope you think this about me, but I always saw you as a person. Maybe when we first started talking, I was like, oh, Pastor Jeremy, like I need to, like I was cursing in here, I remember, and you're like, dude, like, you made it known that you were just a person.
Just be you, dude.
Yeah.
If you need to curse, just curse.
Right,
Like,
right.
I mean, the thing that drives me, I mean, it's actually a really unique existence being a pastor. It's like people act differently than they would ordinarily when they are
Yeah.
around you. But I love when someone just chooses to be them
Yeah.
around me. And I'm actually deeply leery of people who act differently.
Yeah.
Because it just makes them seem like they're somebody different than they actually are. And what I would love more than anything is to get to know who someone actually is. Because I am on a journey, and I know you are too, and we've been on the shared journey of just trying to become more and more actually who we are.
Yeah.
And like you said, like the posture thing, it's like that to me is everything. Like when I'm like this, I'm some phantom version of me.
Yeah.
When I'm like this, both open with who I am, but also open handed towards God.
Right.
And it's like, God, like I'm open.
Yeah.
Mold me, shape me, transform me. If I need my butt kicked, like kick it softly, please, God. But like, yeah, you're like, you got to be open to that journey.
Yeah.
But that's hard because like there's
Sure.
so much in culture and the people all around us that, like, I would say by observation, most people live their lives like this.
Yeah, and you could sense that too when you're talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Like, you could smell that, like not maybe like a actual scent, but
Yeah.
you can get a sense of like when you're talking to somebody if they're being true like to themselves, or like they're like kind of hiding something, or they're, you know, embarrassed about something. A lot of people are just embarrassed about the stuff that they're going through, when
Yeah.
in reality we're all going through it. And
It's
it's
just
all
life.
the same. It's
Yeah.
just different levels and different circumstance, but the emotions and the feelings that we're getting, they're the same,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. And I don't think people should be ashamed of going through the human experience.
No.
Like, that's the thing, is like, we're all trying to figure this out. We're all trying to become who we're to become. But my experience is like most people just want to like kind of dodge and hide through
Yeah.
it. And I know that because like I was one who hid for like, I'm 44 years old. About 40 of those years, like I was some combination of the real version of me and some fake version of me at all times to most everyone.
Dude, that's the battle every day.
Mhm.
Every morning is like, in my mind, I'm like slaying the dragon of like fraudulent me,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, so how I combat that is I go to a meeting, or I'll call one of my friends that's, you know, been through similar, or just any of my friends really.
Mhm.
Like, just talk to another person about that.
Yeah.
Even like talk to you like when me and you meet, maybe probably once a month now,
Yeah.
or once every few weeks.
Yep.
We try to do, but we met every week for
A long time.
a year at
Yeah.
least.
Yep.
You know, and you know, a lot of what we talked about is like, you know, hey dude, like I want to do this thing, but I feel these certain insecurities, or I feel myself closed off, you know.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, and just talking about that helps so much,
Yeah.
you know, getting it out, because that, or even open up that journal. Like, one of the things that I do every day for the last month has been, I wake up, I write 3 things that I'm grateful for, and that gets me in a state of gratitude instead of like default negativity. Because throughout the addiction and my transitioning out of the military, another thing that threw me off was I'd always been a positive and like silver lining kind of guy my
Yeah.
whole life.
Yeah.
You ask my friends, my family, like this past like year and a half has been such a curveball, because I've had some incidences that I can't talk about right now, unfortunately. But once the air is clear, you know, I will 100% let that be known. You know, hopefully if I'm invited back. But
What are you talking about? Shame again.
but yeah, no, totally. But just I totally lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
Just the journey that you've been going through, like, yeah, processing all of that and like the hard things you've been through.
Yeah. Oh, so instead of like, naturally, I was always a positive person. When I went through my addiction, that kind of took my foundation and made it appear that I was on another foundation of lies, of like, that became who I was, right?
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah.
Now I'm untangling, and I've been untangling for a while, that default negative, because I became the complete opposite of who I actually am, and who I believe God wants me to be. Is I was such a negative person. I was very closed off to a lot of things that I didn't want to do. It was all about me, just so selfish. And now, like, I find that through the process of, whether it be going to a meeting or going through the 12 steps, journaling, creating, and taking action of like the things that I actually want to do. And ultimately all that boils down to helping or inspiring another person.
Yeah.
but I'm setting my day right with the gratitude journal, and I'm taking a step towards being positive again.
Yeah.
That's the battle really, is like, going from years of lying and negativity. When you do things repetitively, it becomes a habit. Like it becomes a
Yeah.
default. Your brain can totally get rewired.
Yeah.
And now I'm rewiring it. I don't want to say back. I like to say like forward,
Yeah.
but to who I truly believe I am, or who God wants me to be. And I believe that is a loving and caring and comical, silver lining type of man. That's kind of how always I always felt drawn towards those things.
Yeah.
Like, don't be the negative person. No matter what the situation is, like, try to find the positive, because there's always light in there if you look hard enough. And have faith. Like, have hope, have faith in whatever it is that you're going through. And it's definitely a process, but that's like a daily battle. But
Yeah.
the more you do it, the more it becomes less of a battle. So like I say it's a battle, but it's not really a battle today.
Yeah, but it kind of is.
It is.
Because like the two things you mentioned about like journaling every day and a list of gratitude, I literally do that every day. In a year of 365 days, I probably 315 of them I am doing both those things, writing out gratitude and writing something. Like whatever is on my mind, whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm thinking, whatever I've learned that day. Like I read a lot of books, I learn a lot of things, and it's really, really valuable for me to like process those things. And so like I love that you've been doing that and see the value in that. And I just like couldn't more highly recommend it for people, because I actually just made podcast episode number 7 is about like just how valuable that is. And like you'll spend a year of your life and you'll be able to look back and like track your story, like where you've come from and how you've grown and how you've transformed. And like, dude, you've grown and transformed more than almost any human that I've seen in the last year and a half. And so
I really appreciate that.
yeah, for that to be documented, for that to have kind of like words to it that you've written, like a story to it that you've told,
Yeah.
like that's so powerful. And that is for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's like you ended with, it's hard. And so like it just takes like a daily focus to just do it.
And one of the things I want to say about what you just said, a lot of me and like the society today that we live in, whether it be from social media or whatever, it all factors in. Like, for whatever reason, we focus more on external things. Like your income, how much money you're making, what's your job title, what kind of car you drive, those kinds of things, and those are very easily, somewhere along the lines of my addiction, those things were never important to me. Those became like the most important, to where that's what I was worshiping in a sense. I was worshiping like, ooh, fame, ooh, money, ooh, these kinds of things. Like, that's the hardest part about addiction, is it's a lot of internal change. And like, unless you're close with somebody, like maybe my insecurity might be like, well, there's no title for getting sober and making this internal change, even though I know I'm a different man than I was. Like, now if I tell like the smallest lie, I'll have to go back to that person and be like, hey, I lied about this. Like, back then I wouldn't have batted a single eye at that. Like, I'd be like, whatever, that's normal. But that change is really, you can't put a price on that. When you have an internal shift in your life from going to, like, I always, like, there's a higher power and there's a lower power. The good wolf, the bad wolf, right? We've always talked about that.
It all goes back to that thing we saw in cartoons growing up.
Right. But you know, there's no external sign that says, "Hey, I'm doing better in this," but that bleeds into everything that we do in life. So that's where the value is. And one of the best things that I have about myself today is I can help somebody else.
Yes.
Like, I can help another addict, I can help another person, my friends, my family. I'm able to be there for my family. I'm able to be there for my friends, and, like, really be there though. Not just like, oh, they're calling at, 2 a.m. I'm wasted. I can't, whatever. If they need my help or whatever, I just ignore it. Like, now, the other day, my brother called me at like 1:30 in the morning, and not to put myself on a pedestal, but I'm just happy that I was able to do this. It's like they had a family emergency, and I was able to go there and watch Esme, my niece. And that's like the truly rewarding and truly important things
You're locked into life, dude.
in life.
Yeah, and I'll just say this,
And
like,
the important things in life.
yeah, like, Scott, you walk with intention, and I'll describe this, like, especially at a place like Sunday morning church where there's a lot of people there, like, you are the type of person who, like, goes like towards other people just to, like, check in, to, like, help, to encourage, to, like, lift up. And I see you do that. I mean, I won't name the people, but there's a couple of people in particular you find yourself talking to every single Sunday morning because you're just zipping around the room with intention to say, hey, I'm now living outside of myself and I see these other people. And I know they're my friends, so they help me too. But, like, I'm definitely going to be living a life here where I'm helping them. And, like, if someone came and just observed you, like, you can see that you walk with that intention, that you are a friend with that sort of intention.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I'm glad that you noticed that.
Yeah, but it's intentional, isn't it?
100% is.
Yeah.
But that's because I've felt so alone in my life before. I felt, like I was saying, like, I was gonna take my own life, like, maybe you don't have to deal with that to be a good person at all, but I think if you've been there to a certain extent, it helps. You're it's easier to relate to other people that are going through, darker times. And I think because I've been there a lot more often than I would like to, or, that when I see it in others, like, I can feel for them and I can be like, oh, okay, I see where you're at. And now I'm able to kind of lead them and or point them in a better direction. I can't help somebody for themselves. It's like they have to do the work. I have to do the work for myself at the end of the day. But because I've been in that pain and shameful pit, I'm in a more capable spot of helping.
Totally.
And that's the most rewarding thing in my life today.
Yeah, and you're awesome at it, Scott. And, like, I actually boil this down, like, very, 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 like, simply, is like, if you think of your life, like, how many people in your life, and I was asked this rhetorically, but how many people in your life would, like, you and I and anyone listening would say, like, how many people are there that, like, deeply, deeply care we exist? And it's like, hopefully you have that in your family, though there's a lot of people that don't have that in their family. And, like, it might be for each and every one of us that like there isn't that many people that like deeply, deeply care we exist.
Yeah.
And like there's a little bit of a somber tone to that, but what I focus on in like my life, my role as a pastor, is like taking the optimistic view of that. If I can become a person in someone's life who like deeply, deeply cares that they
Right.
exist, the influence that that carries,
Yeah.
it's like it can be life changing.
100%.
And so, like in youth ministry, I mean, we have an opportunity to step into the lives of teenagers when they're going through like the hardest stretch of
Yeah.
their like formative life. It may not be the hardest circumstantially, but honestly, it usually kind of is also hard very circumstantially, but it's also just like such a tumultuous time as a junior higher, as a high school student. And to become a voice in their lives of someone who like deeply, deeply cares that they exist, it's like deeply transformative. And so I think we as humans like really underestimate the role that we can actually play. And it's not to like step into just help for help's sake, because usually I don't understand the proper ways that I can help someone.
Yeah.
But the best way that I can help them is to just deeply care that they exist.
Dude, that's so true on like another level, to where I've seen it in your practice alone, because I went to one of the youth events. It was just youth group, I think, on Thursday. They were doing
Mhm.
Bible study.
Yeah.
And me growing up I went to a different church. It was a Lutheran church, and for me, I grew up skateboarding. I grew up like that kind of, those were my focus.
Dude, I was an aggressive skater,
Oh, were
an
you?
aggressive inline skater, man,
never
with the
knew that.
baggy pants and
Yeah.
like, yeah, dude, I got after it.
But I say that because I wanted nothing to do with the church when I
Mhm.
was a kid. Especially when I was a teenager, like we would go to church. My friends would come because they knew we were getting an egg sandwich after.
Yeah.
That was the reason
New
to
York,
go to church.
baby.
Exactly. Yeah, like my friends still today like remember that, like coming
Yeah.
to church with us so we can get Citarelli's egg sandwiches after.
Mhm.
I went to your youth ministry and I did a Bible study with them after. And the first off, the amount of knowledge that they've had as what's their age group? What's their cap? Like 18, 17?
18.
I want to say these were like 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. Their knowledge was not only impressive, but the most impressive thing was their passion and their like wanting to be there.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to be there, and they wanted to know, like, and they wanted to walk with God and to have God in their lives,
Yeah.
to lead their lives. That's one of the most impressive things that I've ever seen, because from my understanding of teenagers, I have my own memories, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
kids don't want anything to do with church. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I come here and I see the exact opposite. I have a friend to where she is a youth minister, or not the title, but she runs the youth group
Yeah.
for women.
Yeah.
And like, I'm so surprised. Like, I was like, that's such a shock to me that, kids want to walk with God and are like enthusiastic about it. And she tells me about, her students, and they're like, it's just so beautiful to see, because like really they're, in my own life, there's like a fork that I took, right? And fortunately I made a correct turn and back onto the faith
Mhm.
route, because that is everything that allows me to do everything else in my life.
Yeah.
So faith and God is the first and foremost thing. But to see them on the right path of faith and like just everything to do with that, and not only being on that path, but being ecstatic about being on that path.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring to me.
Yeah.
You know, because that's not what I experienced, you know, growing up at all.
Yeah.
And that's just a really cool way of life, especially as a teenager. You know, like that's gonna set them up to be very good human beings, and they already are. You
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
that's gonna set them up to help other people in life. You know.
Yeah. And I think what I've learned over the years is like we vastly overcomplicate the whole thing. As I think back on my own journey through faith, it wasn't that God appeared in a cloud with a loud booming voice and said, "Jeremy, I love you. Please follow me." Like that maybe would have made things a lot easier, and my faith would have had like some like, oh no, God spoke to me. I know He's real.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. That wasn't my experience at all. My experience was like people who cared that I existed, and those same people believed in God and expressed faith in Jesus and would
Yeah.
credit Jesus and their faith of being this transformative thing. And so for me, it was like these humans, these adult humans who cared about me. Like they actually gave a rip about my existence. They would like show up for me. They would like come and support the things that I was doing. They would cheer me on.
Yeah.
They would speak true things when I needed to like hear like, Jeremy, you're off here.
Right.
Like we got to sort this out.
Yeah.
And it's like for me, that's how I found Jesus, was through people who cared that I existed and who like just leaned into their faith and showed me what that looks like. And so what we've tried to build here is that. And like I just really appreciate your observation of it, because like, and we've worked really hard to create that, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
we've kind of given it everything I've got. And now almost 22 years in, to like see the fruit of that and to see the relationships that have come of that, and to see amazing people like yourself who at some point in the journey we've intersected, and then like, bro, like we tell each other we love each other.
Yeah.
Like we love each other.
No, absolutely.
And so it's like, I mean, in life, if you can like build up this, like, it doesn't have to be a lot, but just this small group of people that like you're on a shared journey with.
Your tribe.
Yeah. And you're just going for it, and you're trying to figure, and you're willing to like ask the questions and share the doubts and talk about the shame monsters. And like, it's in those relationships that faith just tends to like.
Dude, I want to talk about my own experience when it comes to like my Jesus moment, because
Mhm.
I did have one of like, and you don't have to have a moment or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
but there was a particular moment that you just reminded me of right there when you say, you know, you're showing people that, or people are showing up for you in your life, and they're deeply caring about you, and they're walking with you,
Yeah.
and like you feel that they care, right? So that inspires you to do more and to care about others as well. It's like this, you know, kind of you're feeding into each other,
Yeah.
you know, with faith. My sponsor Ken, this was around the time when me and you had probably been talking for about a month or a few weeks.
Mhm.
And for those of you that don't know, we can laugh at it now, but there was a few weeks where I lied to Jeremy,
Mhm.
where I came here and I was still using Kratom. And, you know, I was saying that I was sober and all this stuff. And I was just lying to myself and everybody else,
Yeah.
right? There was a moment that happened. My sponsor, Ken, he never gave up on me. And there's a lot of people that haven't given up on me in my family, right? But we were seeing each other in the Veterans Affairs, the intensive outpatient program, which was Monday to Friday. in the mornings, and he would text and call me every single day, and he there was just something about it, like, to where we connected right away, just like me and you,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I was really struggling with, an alternative route. Like, I couldn't put the substance down. Um, and not only that, like, the substance wasn't necessarily the problem, but my own belief about myself was really the problem.
Yeah.
And he showed me unconditional love of never giving up. And he's like, I remember I went like a week without talking to anybody, and he's like, dude, I just couldn't, he's dealt with a lot of other addicts or veterans, and he's like, for some reason I just couldn't give up on you.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in Rico's parking lot, picking up a tuxedo for my friend's wedding that night, and I was in a relationship that wasn't going well, very much due to my own wrongdoings and my own actions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting in Rico's, and I'm on the phone with Ken, and I'm really struggling, like, to the point of, I don't think I'm sane. I don't think I'm making sense on the phone. I was calling him every 10 minutes, for a few weeks. Like, I was picking up the phone, dude, I don't know what to do, all this. And I asked him, I was like, what worked for you? Like, how did you do it? And he said, I just surrendered.
Mm. Yeah.
And, like, for whatever reason, I thought I surrendered. I thought I had done all that stuff. I was holding on to so many things in the past. Every single shame monster from the time I was a kid to, to a year and a half ago. And him saying that, I had felt like Christ had entered, even though he was always there. I'd felt like he'd literally took the weight off of my shoulders directly. And, that walk with Jesus moment was not only life changing, because for once in my life, I'd felt the love of God, and the acceptance and the forgiveness,
Yeah.
to where my life from that moment on would be changed drastically, in my own sense of peace. And don't get me wrong, the surrendering aspect of giving my life over to God, I'd finally understood that.
Yeah.
You can read it, you can listen to it, but until you have that experience within yourself, it doesn't really make sense. Like, it'll make sense in very superficial ways, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I'd experienced that. I'd experienced that love that I'd felt. I went from praying to die.
Yeah.
That day, for years I'd prayed,
Hmm.
just take my life, please, end this suffering. To, I want to live, and not only I want to live, but I want to live in your way.
Yeah.
And I want you to lead my life, to show me the way, because we use the analogy of driving, right? Like, for so long in my addiction, I thought that I was driving, my car in my life. And, well, I was driving in a lot of ways. And I thought that I had to just get a better, grip on my life and all that. And it was in that moment to where I felt God was like, hey, get in the back seat. I got it from here.
Yeah.
And that, like, very emotional looking back. But that was the first experience that I had where I felt God's love and the peace,
Yeah.
the possibility of that.
Yep.
And from then on, it's a daily thing, like that, giving my life. That's one of the first things I do as well during the day is pray to give my life over to the Lord
Mm-hmm.
and to show me your will. That I have my will for my life, right?
Yeah.
Like we all have our own, how we want, our goals, or how we want to see our finances, our relationships, all these things. For the first time, I was like, I don't care about that. I just want to do what you want me to do,
Yeah.
and make it clear. And it just so happens when you truly pray with your heart like that, he'll show you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really transformative stuff, because that it felt like I had a whole new body in that sense, and mind. I'd felt like he literally took that old brain out and was like, here you go, here's a new one. And don't get me wrong, there's some parts after that, this is
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, that there's really dark moments too.
Yeah.
Just because you give your life to God doesn't mean that your life is just going to get better.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, it might get worse at first, or at times, there's still, life will still be life.
Yeah.
But that experience showed me what to do from then on. It's like, when I am struggling, to pray honestly and openly how I actually feel, and to give that weight over to Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the analogy or the illustration of like the car, because
Yeah.
like I think faith actually is as simple and profound as just stepping out of the driver's seat. Like first unbuckling, opening the door, stepping out, and giving over control.
Yeah.
And I've seen in my own life where like I've always been someone who's leaned into faith. Jesus has been a part of my life the whole time. I grew up with wonderful, loving parents who took me to church every
Yeah.
Sunday morning and
Same.
modeled it in a really healthy way. But yet, like, I am also the type of person who wants to be in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And I actually at times like I need to be in the driver's seat.
Right.
And that has always failed me. And like your analogy, your metaphor is like the times when I've unbuckled, opened the door, walked out, given that over, like every time that has turned into something better. And I what you said, like that the old brain, the new brain, like that's literally deeply theological. That's like all over the scriptures. Like the old is gone, the new has come, like this transformation, this renewing of your mind that the scripture speaks of. Like that's the journey. And it's just been so cool, Scott. Like you've lived your own unique story, but you just continue to be one who is willing to unbuckle and step out.
Yeah.
Though, like we both, in our own ways, will find ourselves deeply cemented into the driver's seat again.
Yeah.
And part of like relationships is to like help encourage each other to like, you might need to tell me, Jeremy, yeah, you're in the, like you're trying to control this. And
Yeah.
like we all like have that part to the thing.
Yeah.
So,
And I might have taken that to the extreme,
Yeah.
like that controlling aspect. Like I tried to control everything because I knew I was out of control. That's
the great irony,
yeah.
right? I'm totally spiraling here. Let me double down.
Right.
In control.
That's the only thing you knew,
Yeah.
Well, that's the only thing I knew. It was, okay, I know that I am in a hole or in the pits, so let me get myself out of it. And there's some truth to that. Like God will give you the tools to get out of it, but I don't look at it like I'm getting myself out of it. I feel that God got me out of it, But yeah, for whatever reason, we want to double down on what we know. And what I knew for so long was just taking my own control, and not only my own control, but if I was with somebody, I'm trying to control what they're doing too. I'm trying to control their actions towards me and life in general as well. You know, it was a very
And how does it usually go when you try to control other people?
it works out great. No, it goes absolutely right into the guardrail, you know?
Yeah. It's one of the great like human, it's just such a like a lie that we've bought
Yeah,
into
yeah.
somewhere along the line, that like I have some semblance of control over somebody over there. And you could be married to them, you could be dating them, you could be raising them as your own kids, you could be leading them in the job that you have. It literally does not matter your relationship to them. You cannot control them.
And what is like the earliest, some of the earliest like memories for me is like, if somebody tells me what to do, I'm going to do the complete opposite and more. You know, like if you try to control me, I'm going to rebel so hard in the opposite
Yeah.
direction, you know,
Yeah.
and what we mistake is that when we're grown-ups, like that goes away, but that completely
Oh,
doesn't.
we just learned how to be more slick with it.
Right.
We learned how
right.
to hide it better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I like, for any parent out there that's listening to this, it's like, it's just such a trap to think we can control our own kids. And I think the deeper reality is exactly what you said, Scott. It's like, the harder I tried to control, the more my kids would like push back.
Yeah.
And I see that in youth ministry, like kids that are having a really hard time with their parents, or parents that are having a really hard time with their kids. It's all tied to control. It's
Yeah.
like, it's all
I would
tied
imagine so.
to like them dictating to their children, this is what you're going to do, this is who you're going to be. And the kid going, well, I've got a finger for you, and it's not the pointer finger.
And like it might come from good intention from the parent. Like it might be something that they learned within their childhood or their life what not to do.
Yes.
But
yes.
at the end of the day, you want to be capable in your own life. Your kid wants to be capable in their life too.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, they are a human at the end of the day. And you know, I've heard it said on some podcasts before, but it was like, are you who your parents wanted to be?
Yeah.
Like talking to you as a parent. So like,
Yeah.
why would your kids be who you want them to be? You
Yeah.
know, even though you might come from a place of like, don't go down this route because I went down that, you know, they might not be able to see that. They might be, and
Yeah.
you're just blessed if they, you know, take that and learn from your mistakes. But a lot of the times we need to learn from our own mistakes.
Yeah. Totally. And yeah, there's this idea that I have that like, instead, for like parents and even friends and friendships and a dating relationship and a marriage, like I think it all applies, but specifically in the lines of parenting, it's like, instead of trying to control the outcome, like parents, we should all just be who we want our kids to be.
That's a great
just be
piece
that
of
thing.
advice. Yeah.
And so if you want your kids to be kind, you be kind.
Yeah.
If you want there to be this
Exactly.
spirit of forgiveness in your kid, be one who forgives
Right.
quickly and easily. If you want them to be gracious towards other people, like be gracious towards them. And like you'll wake up one day and like your kids probably won't do the thing that you want them to do, but they will be almost like plus or minus 10% exactly who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like you'll look in the mirror one day and be like, oh, my son is basically me.
right.
And so if you've built that in like really strong values, really strong character, really strong like family culture, that's kind of the output that you're going to get. But what we try to do is like control circumstance. I want my
Yeah.
kid to be a lawyer. I want my kid to be a doctor. I want my
Oh,
kid
dude,
to
I know so
get
many
perfect
people.
grades. I want my kid to be a star athlete. I want
Yeah.
them to live the story that I wanted to live so that I
Right.
can vicariously
Yeah.
live through them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I speak as one who's like been there and done that.
Yeah.
Like when my son started out on a volleyball journey as an athlete, it's like, oh man, the amount of times I tried to like vicariously live. I dreamed growing up of becoming a basketball high school state champion, like
Yeah.
my team winning the state championship. And I was a high school player, I was a varsity player, I was a starter. My team was totally average. We were like 12 and 12.
Yeah.
We were like, if there was a definition of average, there would be us. And
Dude,
like,
you were below.
yeah, we were just like, we were good. We were just like fine.
Yeah.
And so we never even sniffed. Like we made it to the playoffs and lost in the first round. So it's like, through my son, it's like, man, if he could win a state championship, and like, I know what that caused me to become, and kind of at times the pressure that I put on him. But thankfully, along the way, I kind of realized, like, oh, this isn't my story. Like, I'm just cheering on my son's story. I need to, like, the driver's seat thing. I need
Yeah.
to step out of the driver's seat. Like, this is his story to drive. And I'm going to be in the back, like, present. I'm going to be in the back cheering him on. I'm going to be in the back, like, telling him some true hard things when he needs to hear
Right.
them. But man, I'm on the sidelines.
And I'm laughing the whole time because like I know how successful of a parent you and your wife, like parents, you guys are. Like I don't know your kids fully, but I know about them, and from the outside looking in, like you guys have done an incredible job, and it's, really and just the factor that I know you've taken some trips with your kids and they're of age to where they usually don't want to hang out with their parents, but the fact that you go on solo trips with your kids and they want to, I think that's a huge success, and just speaks for what you guys have done as parents. That's really incredible. That's
Yeah. Thank you for those incredibly kind words. And there's like, when your number one ambition in life is to have like a really thriving, healthy marriage, and then your number two ambition is to like raise thriving, healthy kids who are like pursuing faith and good things. And then you wake up one day and like you see like, oh yeah, it's like it's happening. And you're right, there's like a barometer there of like, yeah, when you ask them to go on a trip to Japan with you, and your son is like, in fact, actually, he asked me to go on a trip to Japan with him. And like, we do it and just have the time of our lives for 2 weeks in Japan, checking out just like such a beautiful, epic, amazing place. And just sharing like just deep, deep bond and connection. Like, that's cool. Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, to me, that means you've succeeded. If there's like a definition of success as a parent, is like them not only asking you to, go on a trip or whatever, but like just the underlying factor of like, because they have friends, I went on trips with my friends when I was 18 or whatever, and, but they're choosing dad or mom,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's job well done, brother. But that's an example.
Yeah, and this is just why like friendships and like open, honest communication. I mean, you're not currently a father.
No.
It one day.
Not that I'm. I'm just kidding.
One day, hopefully, presumably that's a path that you want to take. It's
Yes,
like
I definitely do.
it's, but the fact that we can even talk about these things and you can encourage me in this way, like knowing me and knowing how much that stuff like matters to me, like that's how friendships happen. That's how friendships are built. And
Yeah.
that's how like open on, like you can be friendly and friends with like anyone. You can have a good time with anybody,
Yeah.
well, almost anyone. And but it's like when you have a friendship where like you say stuff like that to me and you know like that hits something in me that's like, oh, that's like the kindest thing you could say to me, when like it's the deepest aspiration of my life to be a great husband and a great dad.
Yeah.
And like when you know that about me, it's like, no, Jeremy, you're like killing it. It's like, oh yeah, that Scott basically just said he loves me. And like that's dope. And yeah, I just
And
appreciate it.
no, man, absolutely. And the difference is today, like that's 100% me being truthful
Yeah.
versus like maybe back in the day during my active addiction, like I would still just say things to people because the power of your word, like people don't realize how much their words actually matter.
Matters so much.
I
It
mean,
matters so much.
doesn't it say in the Bible like the tongue is the rudder of your life or something like
Yeah.
that?
It's a rudder
That's
that steers the ship.
right. And that's something that I'm trying to do this year in particular is learn scripture more
Mhm.
because I don't really know that much of the Bible.
Well, that was a
But
pretty good pull, dude.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, like to be able to sit here and be like honestly like saying that you're doing awesome, or like gassing you up, which,
Yeah.
like I love to do to people. I like to make people feel good but coming from a source of truth, like that's
Real. It's from a
it's
real place of
yeah.
truth and relationship.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
coming from because I used to straight up, gas people up. Like somebody could be doing terrible, and like I used to just because I didn't want people to feel what I was feeling on the inside.
Yeah.
That's like the whole thing is, and like I think that's good in its own way. Like looking back, it's like don't let that shame of what you've done wrong and the mistakes that you've made. I'm talking to
Mhm.
myself.
Yeah.
The mistakes that I've made, the bad things that I've done, like don't let that get in the way of like, look, the bottom line is you're trying to make people feel good. Like under all that rubbish of, thorns and vines, like there's still good intentions there,
Mhm.
and that unfortunately or fortunately came from a place of hurt, but it's just very cool to see those vines cleared, in
Yeah.
that particular field,
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Love it. And we'll wrap with this last question. And I think it's really important as you're like a year and a half into this journey that at times I know has been just insanely hard, but also like full of so many victories and like personal triumphs and
Yeah.
transformation and growth. But as you like project out like the next, say, 10 years, like what do you see? What do you envision for your life?
For myself,
Mm-hmm.
this answer would have been so much different a year and a half ago. And there was a lot of shame in like kind of I'm 30 years old, so there's a lot of people that are established, my friends, when it comes to a job or they have kids, wife, house, whatever. My life is different,
Yeah.
I'm figuring things out. I'm
Yeah.
figuring the next step out. I'm very creative in that sense. So like I'm writing my book, I'm
Mhm.
working on music and all that. But today, honestly, if I'm projecting 10 years out or, 5 to 10 years, I want to ultimately, I really want to do what we're doing right now. Is like to be able to help people on a grander scale, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
You know, for whatever reason, I feel that calling, and I think that's through music. I think that's through conversation. Um, Maybe if I can find a way to make a business out of, you know, that kind of thing. But really, I just want to help people, whether it be from addiction, from a veteran standpoint, transitioning out of the military, or just even life. You know,
Yeah.
I really just want to help people and continue to explore the creative side. I do often say to people that are like new in my life, like I definitely have a different viewpoint on life than a lot of people, meaning like, you know, being in the military and being a combat medic, a Navy corpsman, you do experience, you know, life and death, and whether that be in a hospital setting or a field setting, whatever it
Yeah.
might be, but you see the cycle of life, like, you know, at a young age, and not only in person, but, you know, from veteran suicide. You know, unfortunately, my friend, he took his own life the 24th of November of 2024, and it makes you look at life as like a fragile
Yeah.
and very short and unpredictable kind of thing. We don't know how long we have here.
Yeah.
You know,
for
and I
sure.
take that as one of the most important things to view, is like it allows me to see what matters and what doesn't, or at least what I perceive God wants me to believe, what matters and what doesn't truly, you know. And I'll put myself in my 90-year-old shoes and look back on what I would like to accomplish in life. And that just means to be a loving and caring son, maybe, you know, hopefully father one day, um, artist, but ultimately Christian,
Yeah.
you know, just a loving and caring, and to my potential, you know. But um, for me, that looks like continuing with music, continuing with the Kratom book,
Yeah.
and to just help others in some standpoint, really.
Yeah, and I think Scott, like that's the continued theme that I just hear from you over and over, and we've talked about even today over and
Yeah.
over. It's just like leaning into faith, and then that component of like helping other people on their journey, helping other people lean into faith, like those things. Like that's Scott, that's who you are. Like that's what I've seen and heard from you. I mean, even when your eyes weren't clear,
Yeah.
like even when you were still in a little bit of a haze, like
Yeah.
that was like you already were plotting, hey, I should write a book. Hey, I should see if I can help people. And I mean, frankly, you showing up to your AA meetings, I mean, that is just an incredible practical way of not only you getting helped, but you're there to help your friends as well. And
It goes from intentions to actions now.
yeah,
For
yeah,
now, I'm in the action stage of like
it's a great frame. Yeah,
of doing, you know, rather than saying, because I've talked for so long, you know, for years in my life about doing certain things.
Yeah.
And, you know, now I actually am, you know, performing on stage in front of people. Me and you are here talking right now, putting out stuff for other people that hopefully, you know, one person gets something. If one person gets something from my story today, then that's a success, a
dope.
huge
Yeah,
success.
it's awesome.
And, you know, but the action, you know, action stage, because action and addiction doesn't really go in hand, you know.
Yeah,
But recovery and action, those
they're friends.
those are friends, yeah, they're almost the same. But
Yeah, that is a really great framing. And I, just as someone who's trying to make things, podcasts such as this included, it's so intimidating to make stuff. It's so
100%.
intimidating to create stuff. It's so intimidating to like put yourself, your story, your ideas out there. And frankly, most people just don't have the courage to do it.
Yeah.
And the amount, like I, up until 120 days ago, did not.
Dude, that I remember having the goal to do my first performance on guitar. I was 19 years old. I was like, all right, before I turn 20, I want to perform, right? I was so scared and terrified, like whether that be having older brothers that you don't sing in front of the like in a serious manner, or mostly just me projecting of like what other people might think about me if I'm
Yeah.
singing,
Yep.
or you know, because like I just wasn't that a lot of people didn't know that about me, you
Yeah.
know, and I didn't perform my first time until I was 27 or 28.
Yeah.
So, you know, those years have went by. So to that courage, like that some people might not muster up at times, like there's no time limit for that.
Yeah.
You know, you can do that whether you do it before your 20th birthday or before your 70th birthday or beyond, you know, like there's no time limit for what you feel that God wants you to do.
Yeah.
You know, there's no age limit. You can start or stop whenever,
Yeah.
you know, and that's up to you. But
Takes courage.
it definitely
Yeah.
takes courage, and those, I don't think the doubt, the perception of negativity from other people, you know, I don't think that ever goes away.
Yeah.
You just learn to manage, and or even just throw that to the side and be able to see what actually matters and what you feel that you're supposed to do. If we're not doing what we feel that God wants us to do in life, then I think you fail as a person.
Yeah.
You know, for me, that's how I feel. Like if you're not acting on that, then I would be a failure in my own eyes.
Yeah.
But, you know, and that might be a little extreme, but that doesn't always look like huge actions. Like it's just one small step, even like
Yeah.
throwing that first video up for you.
Yeah, totally. No,
or
it
for
was-
me too.
Yeah. It was me personally defeating my own fears
Yeah.
and just going for it. And the deep reality is like a lot of the things that I was mostly worried about was just my own shame, my own fears, my own worries, my own like people pleasing perfectionist thing that's about me.
Yeah.
But the deep reality is like, I mean, if I make 1,000 of these, like, what's one, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
like for me, making 1,000 short videos in 1,000 days, and all of a sudden, if you plan on doing that for 1,000 days, like the one particular day, it just doesn't even matter because there's literally 999 others. I'm gonna make at least 50 of these podcast episodes. This is episode number 10,
Yeah.
and like if there's gonna be 50 of them, like what's one?
Right.
And the one is significant because like I made it,
Yeah.
and then I posted it, and people watched it, and like we'll just see where it all goes.
100%. And that comes, and you inspire me with that, where I'll take from you is like, you know, what's one song as to, you know, if I have a whole catalog full,
Yeah.
you know, and now, like I said, I'm putting out my own stuff, but you've inspired me to take action in my own life and release, you know, music or even just a message, you know, per day
Yeah.
of hope or
Yeah, it's brilliant.
inspiration, faith,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, a positive message, you know.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you do 1,000 of it, like what's one, you know? And
Doesn't matter.
learning
Yeah.
to just get out of your own way and let
Yeah.
go of all that guilt and shame, because all of that is there if you want it.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of guilt, shame, remorse. You can have all that if you want it, but to let that go and move forward, like I said, could just be one small step.
Yeah.
Even if you're moving forward an inch per day, that's a success in my eyes.
An inch per day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be the title of this episode.
An
inch per day. That's kind of like our tagline for this whole podcast is faith, love, and the power of compounding. And the power of compounding is basically an inch per day.
I loved that podcast that you did on compounding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you just make one small step every day. One, like, whatever your definition of let's get better today, let's grow today, whatever your version of that is.
Right.
Just do that every day.
Yeah.
And you're going to
Steady
wake
pressure.
up in a year and you're just going to be like, your mind is going to be blown with the personal transformation. And so on that note, we're going to wrap this up. This episode 10 of Forever Youth Pastor. I just want to thank my amazing friend, Scott Rose. I'm just really proud of you. I'm really proud of the journey. And I end every episode with a word. If you have made it this far, I want to say to you, you are a legend. Like this one is, oh my, 2 hours. Like this is.
Is it really been?
It's
Wow.
2 hours.
That's
Like
crazy.
you are amazing for getting this far. The word to put in the comments section is transformation. The word is transformation. And like Scott here, my friend, it's just a story of transformation, of letting God come in and do a work to like, you're just a completely different person a year and a half later. And so I'm deeply proud of you. The word is transformation. Thank you all. Peace.
Thanks for having me on, brother. Love you.
Love you too.